Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Meet Your Mission. My name is Kalyna White. I'm a manager at GTSC's Homeland Security today. And today I'm here with Mr. Antonio Villafana, who is the former CIO of the Countering Weapons of Mass Destruction Office at DHS. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Villafana. We really appreciate your time. And to jump right into it, you were talking a little bit about your role as CIO and how agency focused it was and how it changed during your time there. So can you define CIO and kind of what that means?
Well, for a role like CIO at a Counter Weapons of Mass Destruction agency, which is a small agency, and their mission is really on the scientific side of the house, right? So a lot of research happening. Um, I've worked in the biology and chemistry field for some time before becoming a CIO. So the two kind of just fit perfectly together. When I got there, my initial thought was to make sure that I took care of the CIO role, which is to make sure that everyone within CWMD had access to the best tools possible to execute their mission, right? And the other part of that was building relationships, understanding the mission a little bit more. Why do we have researchers and what are they doing? Why do we have medical officers and what are they doing? What's the role of, for example, the person that's in charge of the fire chiefs and all that good stuff. So, understanding that I can fit in and contribute on that side of the house, as well as provide the tools needed to them for the team to execute. That was big to me, and I really enjoyed my time there. It was a successful time there for me because I gained a lot of knowledge, built a lot of relationships. So it was definitely a great place for me to go and grow professionally as well.
And can you define weapons of mass destruction? I think a lot of us just think nuclear bombs, but I know that it's so much more than that.
It's a little bit more than that. What it really includes is any type of disbursement or bomb, just to keep it simple, that can affect thousands of people, hundreds of people, with a single disbursement. So nuclear bombs are great because as an example, but you also have biological threats, right? You have threats where folks can have these creative ideas, and to be honest, um, foreign actors have not been able to successfully carry out biological attacks because of the uncertainty with how such an attack um, I guess would affect the population that they're trying to affect. Um, Chemical attacks are the same way. It's very difficult for someone to project something that would be lingering somewhere for any extreme amount of time and affect a lot of people. Um, but as far as nuclear bombs, of course, everyone knows the instant effect you get with that, and what happens with that. But yeah, there's a biological threat, there's a chemical threat, a viral threat that does exist. We may not have experienced it on a large scale, but that's probably due to good preparedness and deterrence that we have in place for it. So, I mean, if someone is looking for a career in IT and has that affinity for science, it's really a great mission to get into. An agency like that would really help you grow.
Was that what a lot of the researchers that you mentioned working on?
Yes, yeah, we actually try to do a lot of work on the preparedness side of the house. So the more you prepare and the better you prepare, your better chances of reacting to an event. So we also had to work on not only preparedness, but how do we react to these events, right? What happens after an event, right? So all of the planning that needs to happen to ensure that we uh, we go to a site where the event occurred, we take care of the population, We look at critical infrastructure, make sure we support critical infrastructure protection. So there's a lot of things that needs to happen, and that's all part of the preparedness. But you really can't. You have drills where you go through tabletop drills and you can practice those things. But more for the most part, so far we've been lucky. We really haven't had that type of exposure where we had to implement those things. So it's great that we have it, knowing that it's available to us. But hopefully we will never have a chance to use those things.
Absolutely. I think that's what everyone in DHS hopes for, that that kind of event would never happen. How did you end up in your position as CIO and in the countering weapons of mass destruction office? I know you've had just reading your bio, a really interesting career.
Well, as I got into the management and executive role kicking and screaming, honestly. When I first started off in my early career, my goal was to just be a developer for the rest of my career. All I wanted to do was code, leave me alone, tell me what I need to do. I'll code all day, all night for you. But then, I was asked to lead a software development team. And I said no initially. And then they said, well, they gave me all of the incentives and the training that was needed. And I went into it kind of reluctantly. And then once I was exposed to it, I thought, I just made a big deal of, leading people. I never thought I'd be able to do that. But I guess with the proper training and exposure and the right leadership helping you along the way, you can make that transition. There's a lot of folks that are really good developers, but they can also make really good leaders as well. So even though you might be hesitant about making that move, sometimes you just need that nudge, right? Just go feed in first and just test it out and see if it's for you. If not, then you can always take a step back and continue your development career. And there's nothing wrong with that. But before my CIO role, I was also a solution architect. I've also worked as a enterprise architecture specialist as well. And I also was responsible for the governance office at the DHS OCIO office as well. So I did have some exposure to the other parts in, I guess, IT, where CIOs really need to have a firm handle on. And governance was a big part of that, learning how to make sure that we have frameworks in place to allow our people to, invest in the best tools, acquire the best tools, put in place structure around how we conduct our business. That was a big part of learning that CIO role and taking that to CWMD.
Yeah, I mean, GTSC recently acquired the FitGov Summit, which I believe you're also a board member of. But I know that I've learned a lot about governance and how important it is, and how I think as someone in my 20s, it's not something I've ever had to think about, but how technology is rapidly expanding. It's really interesting. We heard the phrase building the plane as you're flying it.
Yeah.
being
Yeah, we
used.
use that a lot at
Yeah,
DHS.
we
Yeah,
heard that many a time. Yeah.
I don't want to be doing that again. But because it was something that everyone actually enjoyed. If you were a part of DHS in the first, I would say 4 or 5 years of its existence, that's what you were doing literally. You were trying to conduct a mission, and along the way build a runway while this plane is taking off, right? So, so it was a challenge, but I think for the folks that were there, they were loving it, right? It's a chance to do something different and make a difference, because everything that we built during the early years is the foundation for where DHS is today. So I really enjoyed it, putting together that governance office. I had to build it from scratch and put structure in place. So yes, I truly enjoyed doing that as well.
And DHS just celebrated the 20-year anniversary, so
Yeah.
it's crazy what's been achieved.
And maybe 20 years, my goodness. 20 years, wow, long time.
So that leads into my next question.
Yeah.
How was your work meaningful to a personal mission?
Ah, ooh. I think it's the impact that I know my role would have, not only to DHS, but the homeland in general, right? I love public service. I've moved on in my career within the federal government as a contractor, as a federal employee. I'm also doing some work right now with the state government as well. So I'm always looking for the next mission where I can go in and make a difference, right? If it's just building a citizen portal for citizens of the state or the federal or the government to come in and interact with us and ask questions and us being transparent with the our constituents. I love that part of the mission. I've always been asked the question, why don't you go industry? Because you can make a killing out there. Of course, you don't get rich working in the government, but I have to weigh the balance between, what I feel that, where my worth is at and what I'm happy with, versus chasing, the money. So, and a lot of kids, younger kids come in there just first looking for their first job. I would highly recommend that they look at public service, because it's a bad rub sometimes because people hear about the low pay and the ever-changing priorities in the government that you have to deal with. But you don't have to stay there for your entire career. If someone has questions about, what that environment is like, I would say accept a role there. See if you are a good fit for it. Maybe you are someone that really love public service. You just don't know it at this point, but you wouldn't really know until you get into it. Because from the military, I was a contractor for quite some time, but I just had that urge to go back into public service and work in the federal space and work in the state government space as well.
So besides go into public service, do you have any parting wisdom for those who are entering the workforce?
Pick a career. Most kids coming out of colleges, uh, it's just about getting that first job, right? And getting paid, getting set up. Um, but I think if you much just much like anything else, if you have a goal that you're working towards, or an objective, um, you know what steps along the way that you have to take to get to that point. And the same thing with your career. If you identify, hey, look, I would love to be a CIO someday. Um, what what things I need to learn? Where do I need to position myself to become a CIO, right? And we talked about it earlier. Learning how a small group of IT professionals operate. And you might want to think of a development team, for example. How do they operate, right? What are their needs? What are they producing, right? What is their reporting structure? And then you talk about governance. You know, you definitely, if you want to be a CIO, that's something you can't get away from because that's a big part of your how you're going to be successful and execute your role. You have to know governance. Now today, cybersecurity is a big part of that. I think anyone coming out of college today and looking to get into a CIO role, they have to keep information security at the forefront. If you can get a certification, um, any certification in information security, it would help because it would help springboard you into other bigger things. You can just start off small, but you have to really have a good understanding of that threat landscape. You don't necessarily need to be a chief information security officer to really understand that part of the business. Just a good understanding of, you know, what it is, why it's important, and just continue to work towards getting that experience as a leader as well, that takes you into CIO role.
Well, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. I think although I don't see myself becoming a CIO in the future,
Yeah,
I definitely think that your advice has been really helpful. So thank you so much.
absolutely. Anytime, Kevin.